Hi everyone, it's Nancy. Welcome back to my channel and thanks for stopping by to take a look at my video. I got another project to share with you. These are little notepads that have perforated pages in them, and I made them using a jewelry envelope that has a window in it and a flap at the top. I sell these envelopes in my shop, and I wanted to come up with some ideas on different ways that you can use these envelopes, and this was one of them that I came up with. If you have coin envelopes that have a flap at the top, you can use them. It's just that it won't have a window in it. And coin envelopes come in different sizes, so you can adjust the project according to the size of the envelope that you have to work with. So that's that. And these are the pads that I made. This one I used dried flowers in the window, and I stitched around all of these around the window. And this one I stitched around as well, around the edge of the cover here. And then it flips up like this, and then the perforation is just underneath the fold here. So somebody can tear out a page and it'll come out nice and neat. And on this one, I believe I covered the back of it with an image just to make the pad more appealing. This one I did with mushrooms, and the backing in the window here is vellum that I sprayed with ink sprays. And both of these pads I collaged just with my scraps, and I used up old scrapbook paper that I had, and this image actually I did get from a digital kit from Louise Hensel, I believe is her last name. I don't know how to pronounce it, sorry. And this image is from her kit as well. So that's that one. And then this one is done a little differently. I used like a whole sheet of paper, sorry, to cover the cover here. And to cut the opening for the window, I used a die. And the die I used was this one here. It's a Tim Holtz die by Sizzix, and I think it's called Stacked Decal. It's got like a decal edge on the inside, and there's different sizes, and I just chose the size that fit the window the best, and ran it through my die cut machine. In case you want to know, the item number for this is 662694. So if you're interested in getting that, or you could probably look it up by its name, Tim Holtz, Sizzix, die, Stacked Decal, whatever. So that's that. And the one I'm going to show you in this tutorial today, I'm going to use this one with the cut window. And I've already gone ahead and got started here with covering it. And let's take these pads away. As far as supplies go, I will put a list in the description box below, as well as a link to my shop where you can get these envelopes. And yeah, I decided to put the supply list in the description box, that way you can take your time referring back to it as to what you need. Okay, so the first thing I did was I scored this envelope at the top 3/4 of an inch from the top of the envelope. And you can use your scoreboard, but I just took my Tim Holtz ruler, lined it up at 3/4, took my scoring tool and just scored right there. This is the part that's going to flip up on the notepad. And then just burnish it, fold it this way and burnish it. Make sure your, don't do what I did, make sure your flap is up when you're folding it. And then I also scored 1/8 of an inch from this fold line where the flap folds. And it's hard to see this line through the ruler. So what I did was I just took a pencil and marked it so I can see it through the ruler. And lined it up with the 1/8 of an inch. And scored. And I folded that down. This 1/8 of an inch will give you room for the pad to sit up on underneath, and the flap will go over the back of the pad of paper. Right, and what we're going to do now is make the pages, which I've already done. Get them right here, and a few of these. You want to cut your pages 2 7/8 by 2 7/8 this way and 5 3/8 this way. And for, you know, medium weight paper, I used about, I think it was about 15 pages. Use whatever you have. So that's the pad. And to perforate, I'll show you what I did. There's different ways you can do this. Actually, almost 4 different ways. You can mark the top of your pads. You want to do the perforation 5/8 of an inch from the top of the paper. You can either go through and mark those with a tick mark and use your sewing machine without thread and then sew right across to make the holes. Or you can use a little tool like this, which I got from Amazon, and sometimes it's called a tracing wheel or a perforation tool. And that's what I use to make my perforations. The other way you can do it is if you have a Tim Holtz ruler and a thin kind of pokey tool, you'll notice that this Tim Holtz ruler has holes in it, and you can poke your holes that way by following these holes at the bottom of the ruler. And if you don't have a Tim Holtz ruler, you can still use something sharp like this, and then just use a ruler and then poke your holes, you know, so many, like 1/8 of an inch apart along the top of your pad. So those are the 4 different ways you can make perforations. I highly recommend this tool. It's pretty easy to use. This is how I did it. So I want my perforation to be 5/8 of an inch from the top. So take the part where I suppose your index finger is supposed to go. Line my ruler up at 5/8 of an inch and then just ran it along the edge. And there you go. You got, I don't know if you can see that, but you got perforations at the top. And I found that you can actually take about two pieces and it'll still work. You'll still get perforations. So 2 pieces a paper at a time. You'll be done in no time at all, and you'll have your pad. So that's how I did the perforations. So here I have my pad with all the perforation done. And then I just made sure it was even. And I took my binder clips and take another one just to keep the pages in place. Flatten it out. And then I took a fairly sturdy stapler and took my stapler and I put 3 staples in the top. So, lined it up, I looked at the side. You want it about, you know, 1/4 of an inch in from the top. And press down. This is a really great stapler, by the way. And then a 3rd one. So I've got staples in my pad. Okay, so I'll take my score tape and I'll run a piece. Wait, let me trim this off. I will run a piece across the top. Kind of covers the staples, but you don't want to put it real close to your perforations. You want it at least of 1/8 of an inch above your perforations. And I put it on both sides, the front and the back. And then just trim that off. And then you want to burnish it in pretty well. Right around the staples. So it doesn't come loose. Like that. Okay, so your pad is ready to go to be put in when you have your back piece cut and covered and this covered. So we're gonna set that aside. So the next thing I'm gonna do is make the insert for the window. And I chose this little image and I chose this for the backing. You wanna cut your piece you know, smaller than the envelope. It makes it easier to slip in and out and to center it in the window. And also what I did was lined it up at the bottom and then roughly marked where this bottom is and the top of this is, and then I took it and did the same with the sides, evened it up in the center, and then roughly marked with my eye, you know, imaginary line from here to here. That way I get an idea of, you know, where my square is and how I can center this. See, let's do it like, I'll do it like this. It doesn't look too weird. Yeah, because I don't think it goes like this, and I don't think it goes like that. I'm thinking it goes something like this. So I'm going to take my glue. This is art glitter glue I'm using to glue this image down. And I want it centered roughly. think that's pretty good. Just a little bit, yeah. Make sure this little piece wants to stick up. And tack that down. So there's my image. I'm gonna erase these lines. And I'm going to stick it in my envelope. Make sure it goes all the way to the bottom. And if you see that you might have it up too high, you can always trim it. I think this is up just a little bit too high. I think I want to trim that. I'm going to trim it off just a little bit. And see if that's better. And there, that looks pretty good. Now what I did at this point is I took actually some 3-in-1 or Fabri-Tac glue, and I tacked it down on the inside of the envelope just a little bit. So get that flowing down. I opened it up. Make sure it's centered. And then I kind of drip the glue on the back of the image like that, just enough to tack it down. Okay, because you're not going to be using this as a pocket, so if it seeps out a little bit, that's okay. The next thing you're going to do, or I'm going to do, is sew around this window. And when I'm done with that, I will be back. Okay, I'm back. I sewed around the window, and I just wanted to show you how I finish off these threads. I take a needle and thread the 2 threads that come out on the top, and I just push them back through a stitch so they come out in the back. And since I'm going to cover this, I'm not going to tie them off, but if I wasn't covering it, I'd take these 2 sets of threads and tie them into knots. So here I'm just going to trim them off. And let me put my needle away so it doesn't land on the floor and Kitty gets it. Alright, so put the stapler away. So we have our image done. We have the front covered. And now we're going to cover the back of the envelope. And I'm just going to use this piece. So, in this case, since there's stitching here, I'm going to use 3-in-1 glue to glue this piece down. Just take my glue if it comes out the bottle. Wants to come out the bottle. And I'm going right up to that score line because I'm going to put a piece of paper over that. You'll see what I mean. Make sure you put a lot of glue right around the stitching. See how I inked on the inside of this? You want to make sure you do that before you glue it down on the envelope. So we've got this glued down. We're going to trim off the paper. Alright. And then the next step is to put on these two these two pieces. This will go over the edge like this. I thought it gave it a pretty cool look. But before I did that, I cut off about, I think it was about 3/8 of an inch. Yeah, a quarter inch to 3/8 of an inch off the flap, the top of the flap. It just squares it up, makes it look nicer. So I just measured with my ruler and then cut it off. So now I'm going to take this piece out. I used my tear ruler and tore this edge, and I'm going to lay it over the top here, and I'm going to lay it over the fold line. But I want it over the fold line just enough so that when I do fold it, it doesn't come unglued. So right about, I would say, at least a quarter of an inch over your fold line. Okay, I'm going to use my glue stick because it dries faster. And for the sake of this video, I'm going to do that. So once that dries, we can cut around it and fold it again to make sure our fold line folds. Okay, so the next step to do before we put on this second piece in the back is you want to reinforce those folds that you made in the beginning so they don't get lost when you put the second piece of paper on in the back, the cover on the back. So you want to reinforce that 3/4 inch from the top fold, and you want to reinforce this 1/8 of an inch right here. Then you can put your paper on the back. And I'm going to cut around this first. And then I'm going to set this aside and let it dry while we cover the back of the pad. Take away my little glue sheets here. Okay, now here's the pieces I cut for the back of the pad. This is a piece of chipboard, and it's like it's not real thick. It's like a medium weight chipboard, and I cut it at 3 1/16 of 5.5 inches this way. And the way I did it is the way you basically make a cover for a journal. So take my glue stick, in this case. You can also use double-sided tape and put it around the edge, and then just use glue stick in the middle, or whatever other glue you use. I'm going to lay this down, and I left about 1/2 inch around all the sides. Doesn't have to be totally perfect, but You want it to be somewhat straight so that when you miter your corners, they come out nice and even. I take my... Now, when I do this, I use a miter, this little mitering tool. I got it a long time ago from perfecttrimruler.com if you're interested in getting one. And each side is a different thickness for chipboard. And this is the smallest one, so I use that one to cut my corners. You lay it down, make sure I have it the right way. Line it up with your corners, and then I just draw a line. And I do that on all the corners, because I'm not good at, you know, how everybody else just kind of cuts them freehand. I'm not real good at that. I either cut it too short or, you know, too long. So this has always worked for me. So I trim out those corners. And you'll see how it leaves a little bit of a gap. This is a little bit too much because this ruler doesn't have a thickness for this thin chipboard. So I'll trim them just a little bit more. But you don't want to trim them too close, then your paper's going to tear and you won't have a nice corner. So then I take it and I take my bone folder and kind of bend these sides up, right up against the chipboard. Then I take my tape. Let me cover my glue first. I take my score tape. You can use glue, you don't have to use the tape, but it always works well for me. And I just put some tape down right to the edge, even if it doesn't cover all of it, because I'll use glue to fill that in. And so then I take my tweezers, and I like to do the long end sides, not ends, the long sides first. And I take the tape off of that. I take my glue and just fill in those little gaps there. Oh, come on. And a little bit here. Yeah. I'm going to leave this on its side. Okay. So I fold that in. Get my bone folder. Make sure I'm right up against the edge. Kind of pull it over. Press against the edge. Fold it over. Nice and tight. Okay. Now, take out this piece. And you see these two little pieces that come up, let's see, that come up right here over the edge. You're gonna kind of take your fingernail and push that in a little bit. And do the same here. Sometimes they don't want to go. I'm still trying to perfect it, and I've done so many of these. Okay, like this one. So push that in, okay? Take your glue, fill that in, that little space. It helps with the corners. make sure that's pushed in. Push that up again. Pull that corner down. And your goal here is to try to get your corner nice and pointed, but not, you know, lumpy, is how I would say. Press that down as much as you can and press that in. And there you go, you got a nice pointed mitered corner. And then you're gonna do the same with this side. And you've got your back made. Okay, but you have to cover this part because it does show, because when you flip up the paper it does show. So this has writing, so I want to make sure I have it right side up. And then you cut, I cut this kind of, you know, I wanted to show these edges, so I left about a little more than 1/8 of an inch around the edge. So this one, I'm going to use my tape around the edge here. And yeah, the tape doesn't quite come up to the deckled edge, but it works just fine. And you can always use a little glue to, if that comes up too much, you can use a little glue to tack it down. Okay. Right. I missed that corner. Oh well, we'll get it. Burnish it down. And this is what I do so I can center it. Get it nice and centered. I just pull this tape down just a little bit. Okay, like that. And my glue, fill in my glue right here. Because this sticky tape is very unforgiving, so I like to start just that small at the top and then glue the rest down. I think that's pretty good. So I've got that top part down. Now the rest of it's easy. I just pull the tape off and fill in the middle. And then, because I put tape around the edge, there's no glue oozing out. Okay, that's another good trick to know. So your back is done. And now we just gotta finish the front cover, and we're almost done. Okay, so we set this to dry. We're gonna cut around this edge. Now this paper I used at the top was a little bit thicker than what I usually like to use for this part. I like to pick like a thinner paper because that way the folds that I made at the top don't get all bunched up. But we're just gonna try it. If it works, it works. Okay, I'm gonna use a little ink. I picked chipped sapphire for this little pad here. Just ink around the edges. Okay, so that's our cover and our back. I'll put this away. Alright, so we have our front cover, and We have our back cover, and this is going to be the inside. You take your pad of paper and you take off one side of the tape and you line it up side by side, side to side, and flush with the top of the chipboard. I'm going to check once again to see if I have this writing. I think this is the right way. I'm going to lay it flush with the top. If I go this way, and flush and then centered side to side, and that looks pretty good. All right. I don't want this part to fall forward. I want this to be even. So I set it in there. Make sure it's even on both sides. Make sure that the back cover is flush with the top. So tuck that back cover up in that little gap there. And I think we've got it. Make sure it's centered side by side. Okay. And then you fold over the flap to the back. Okay, so now we have to take our tape off. Tape off, fold it over. And your goal here is so that this fold goes right over the perforations so you can't see it. So, like it was crooked, that's why I pulled it up right away. Alright, so that's the front part, and it looks like it's even. Next thing to do is to glue the back on. And you can use either the 3-in-1 or the art glitter glue. And just go around the edge, the whole flap, and then also I take a little bit and I go right along the top of the pad there. Not too much, just enough. Then I fold it over. Press it down good and let it dry, and you can put some clips on like that. Let it sit and dry, and you have your pad. So that's the project. I hope you liked it. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I made sense while I was doing it. So thank you for watching. Have a great day, everyone. Stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you soon. Bye.